Hey guys, welcome back to You Can't Sit With Us. This week, I am attempting to enjoy a vacation with my family, so if there are some interesting noises in the background, I apologize. But I really wanted to go ahead and get this episode out because there were some things that were weighing on me that I just thought we needed to talk about. First, I want to say that I'm going to use the word mom and women a lot, but any men that are out there listening, I just apologize. This is coming from my point of view. If you feel this and it resonates with you, then absolutely stick around. I don't mean to say mom or woman in the sense that men are not affected. Like I said, it's just my point of view. So today I want to talk about something that I think a lot of women carry quietly, and that's guilt. Not just mom guilt and not just relationship guilt, but the kind of guilt that shows up anytime we try to care for ourselves. Anytime we try to rest or say no or slow down or admit that we're overwhelmed. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that putting ourselves down on the priority list made us good women, good moms, good wives, good friends, good caretakers. And the moment we choose ourselves for even a second, guilt pulls up a chair at the table. So today, I want to have an honest conversation about that. The things that lead to the guilt. The first one, the pressure to carry everything. Things like emotional labor. I recently came across this idea called emotional labor, and I honestly think so many women are carrying it without even realizing it has a name. It's not necessarily the physical stuff, it's the invisible stuff. The mental checklist you're constantly running, remembering everything, thinking ahead, trying to make sure everybody's okay, managing emotions, avoiding conflict, keeping peace, carrying worries no one even knows you're carrying. And what's hard is after a while, you don't even notice how heavy it is because it's just become normal. The next one, being needed constantly. I think one of the hardest things about being a woman, especially if you're a mom or a caretaker, is feeling constantly needed. And I don't mean in a negative way. Being needed can be beautiful, but it can also be exhausting because there's rarely a moment where nobody needs something from you, emotionally, mentally, physically. And eventually you stop asking yourself, what do I need? Because everybody else's needs come louder. Another thing that we carry is the mental load. I don't think people talk about the mental load that women carry. It's the invisible list constantly running in your head. You know the one. Appointments, schedules, groceries, school, what everybody needs, what's coming up next, what you forgot, what still needs handled. Even when you're sitting still, your brain usually isn't. And honestly, I think some of us are exhausted before the day even starts because our minds never actually shut off. Next is caregiving. Caregiving is such a beautiful thing, but caregiving can also quietly drain you, especially when you love deeply. Because when you care a lot, you naturally want to help. You want to fix, support, carry, protect. But eventually you realize loving people and caring everything for people are not the same thing. And I think a lot of us blur those lines. And last but not least, unique needs parenting. And I think parenting in general carries a level of guilt no one prepares you for. But when parenting has extra layers, extra needs, extra emotions, extra advocacy, extra worry, the mental and emotional load can feel heavier because you love your child so deeply that your brain rarely turns off. And you're thinking ahead constantly. Are they okay? Did I do enough? Did I miss something? How do I help them succeed? Am I helping enough? And honestly, I think a lot of parents quietly carry guilt even while doing an incredible job. And then trying to keep the peace for everyone else. I think some of us become peacekeepers and we don't even realize it. We're constantly trying to make sure everybody's okay. Nobody's upset. Nobody's uncomfortable. Nobody's disappointed. And before long, we start sacrificing our own peace to maintain everybody else's. But here's the hard truth I'm learning. Keeping peace and carrying everybody's emotions are not the same thing. And sometimes protecting your own peace means accepting that not everybody gets to feel okay all the time. Sometimes I don't even realize how tired I am until I finally sit down. And even after all of that, peacekeeping, the caregiving, the emotional labor, somehow resting still feels selfish instead of necessary. So after thinking about all this, I kept coming back to one question. Why does resting feel so wrong sometimes? Why do so many of us struggle to sit down without mentally listing everything we should be doing? Why do we feel guilty slowing down? Because if I'm honest, sometimes even when I finally rest, my brain doesn't. I'm still thinking, I'm still planning, still mentally carrying things. And I wonder if a lot of us have forgotten what actual rest even feels like. I think somewhere along the way, exhaustion became normal, almost expected. Like being overwhelmed somehow means we're doing enough. Like if we're tired enough and busy enough and stretched enough, then maybe we're succeeding. And if we're resting, suddenly guilt shows up. Like, shouldn't you be doing something? Did you forget something? Couldn't you be using this time better? I go to the salon every 8 weeks just to get my gray hair covered up. Nothing more. I don't go to spa days. I don't get facials. I don't get pedicures or manicures. And a lot of the time I say, well, I don't really care about that stuff, or I don't need it, or it's not important to me. But realistically, the reason I only go to the salon every 8 weeks and I only get my gray covered up is because the whole time I'm sitting there, all 60 minutes, give or take 10, I'm thinking about what I'm not doing, what I should be doing, what's waiting for me at home. I don't relax. And you can ask any hairdresser I've ever had. They'll tell you the same thing because it's exactly what I've told them. I don't enjoy it. I don't ever shut my brain off when I'm there. I feel guilty the entire time, so it's not enjoyable for me. Another reason rest feels wrong, because there's guilt in saying no. Talk about something that's uncomfortable. Why does saying no feel so hard? Like genuinely hard. Not just inconvenient, emotionally hard. Because if you're anything like me, sometimes saying no feels heavier than just overextending yourself. And I think for a lot of us, it's because no doesn't just feel like a boundary. It feels personal. Like we're disappointing somebody, letting somebody down, being selfish, being difficult. And honestly, sometimes it feels easier to just say yes, even when we know we're exhausted. I think one of the hardest things to sit with is the guilt that comes after setting a boundary. Not even setting it, keeping it. Because boundaries sound healthy in theory until somebody doesn't like them, until somebody feels hurt, until somebody gets frustrated. And suddenly you start questioning yourself. Was I too harsh? Am I being selfish? Should I just have handled it? Am I overreacting? And the guilt in setting a boundary sits right beside the guilt in needing space. Why is needing space so hard to admit? Like real space, quiet, time alone, time to think, time where nobody needs anything from you for just 1 minute. Because if I'm honest, sometimes I need space. And almost immediately after feeling that, guilt shows up. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I handle this better? Shouldn't I want to be around everybody? Am I being selfish? I keep coming back to this idea of the table God prepares for us, because I don't think He intended for guilt to have the loudest voice there. I don't think peace was meant to feel selfish. I don't think protecting your heart, your energy, your mind, or your rest makes you a bad person. Sometimes wisdom looks like boundaries. Sometimes healing looks like slowing down. And sometimes faith looks like finally admitting you can't carry everything alone. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Not come when you've figured it all out. Not come when you've stopped struggling. Not come after you've handled everybody else first. Just come weary. And honestly, I think a lot of women are weary. Not weak, not failing, just carrying a lot. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Carrying invisible things no one else fully sees. And maybe part of healing is realizing God never asked us to prove how much we can carry before we're allowed to rest. Maybe rest was never supposed to be earned. Maybe it was always an invitation. So I guess the question this week is, what burdens did God actually ask us to carry? Because needing space isn't weakness. Maybe it's wisdom. Maybe the need for quiet isn't selfish. Maybe it's your soul asking for rest. Because if Jesus invites the weary to come, why do we keep convincing ourselves we have to keep carrying everything alone? Maybe guilt has had a seat at the table for long enough. And around here, we're learning that some things simply don't belong. So guilt, you can't sit with us. I'll see you guys in the next episode.